Uncover the wisdom of the feminine through soulful conversations on spirituality, healing, relationships, self-leadership, sovereignty, and so much more. I'm your host, Tamar Gale, feminine embodiment facilitator, feminine arts mentor, and soul tantrika. In this podcast, my goal is to take you deeper into the world of the feminine, stepping more into your feminine pleasure, power, authentic truth, and your sovereignty. Welcome to the Feminine Codes podcast. Welcome everyone, and today I'm with Daphne Michaels, who is a human potential expert, best-selling author, and ultra conscious guide. She has dedicated her life to helping others reach elevated consciousness through energetic insights, tools, and practices. So her mission is to inspire transformation and really help individuals awaken to their highest potential through ultra conscious living and quantum awareness. Daphne, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on. I know that today we're going to talk about why crossing a threshold into a new era of potential is the next step in conscious evolution. And so I'm really excited to have you on here and to talk about this topic. Welcome.
Thank you. And I'm so happy to be here, Tamar. I think your show and your concept of the feminine divine, I don't know of anything that's more important right now in terms of diving into something that can be life-changing for women and for men.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again for having me on.
Thank you. And first of all, I would love to hear about how you got into this profession. What brought you to this?
Well, yeah, when I was 19 years old, I had a spiritual awakening and I did not understand it for a long time. And I see you shaking your head like you know what that means,
Yeah, I get
right? And
that.
I'm sure that many of your listeners know what that means in terms of something shifting so profoundly inside that we don't see the world the same way. And I could not put it into words. I had a download and I was under the stars, which is kind of a cliche. Well, the other part of the cliche was that I was on a mountaintop and I was under the stars. But it was a very profound experience where, in a moment, I felt such a connection to what life is supposed to be about at the highest level. And it answered for me a question about why are we sometimes loving and sometimes not loving? And I couldn't even put it into words at that time, but it started me on a journey to figure out what had happened. And so through that journey, I became aware of psychology. I actually became a psychotherapist. And I became aware of the ego structure and why that gets in our way. And then I went deeper into it, into the energetic anatomy, and eventually created a body of work that I teach that is about who we really are beyond the ego. And so that's been a lifetime process, and it's brought me to where I am now.
I can definitely relate. I think I was about 18 when I had my first spiritual awakening. It was in nature as well. It was very much connected to the sunset and this deeper understanding that I had kind of felt within, but it had never been able to really grasp it, or it was something that I knew I was looking for. And finally it was like an aha moment. Oh my gosh. I remember stopping the car, getting out, and just watching the sunset and just in this deep connection with the creator, and just having this understanding of life and how creator was in everything around me. And that really has to do with my path today as well. So it's so fascinating.
Incredible. What's so interesting is that this seems to be the time that we're coming together, right? I mean, you and I are coming together,
Mhm.
but so are all consciousness seekers coming together. Many years ago, when I had my spiritual awakening, people couldn't understand what I was talking about.
Mhm.
And I couldn't understand what I was talking about either, which led to me studying and trying to get clear about
Yeah.
what is all this and why did that shift happen. But today, this is a movement. It is a mass movement toward higher consciousness. And it's
Mhm.
incredible to meet other people who have had similar awakenings or who recognize that they want to awaken and that
Mhm.
there's something more to life than just living out of the ego level.
You're right. It is a collective shift that we're seeing. It's something on a larger scale. And at least, especially, I can't say at least, but especially here, which I was shocked. And to ever even say this, I live in South Florida, Miami area.
Mhm.
And to even say that this is now a hub, so to speak, of where a lot of people are coming together is mind blowing to me, but it is. There's a lot
It
of
is.
people coming from all over the place feeling a call to be here for whatever reason. And I never wanted to come back, but God, Spirit Creator, just has kept sending me back every time I've left for whatever reason. I'm still uncovering. But it is, you said, people are coming together at this time for a reason. And it's for this
Yes.
growth, this collective growth, this shift that we're going through.
Absolutely. And it's happening in places that it does surprise us. And so I know I worked for a long time in a small town. Well, not that small, Tacoma, Washington, outside of Seattle. But the overall community was definitely not enlightened. However, there is such an amazing undercurrent of people who would study with me at my institute, who would come from all walks of life, very successful entrepreneurs or people in the business community or whatever, magnetized to this work.
Mhm.
And so I've seen it happen where it's surprising. And now, of course, we're global, right? You're
Yeah.
global, I'm global. And so I have people from South Florida who are in my program. So it's just whoever feels called to wherever they're going, it just seems like there's lots of hubs showing up for them.
And how would you define the evolution of consciousness? And why do you think that this is such a pivotal moment for this collective growth?
Well, the evolution of our consciousness is about becoming more conscious of who we are as human beings. About 95% of our consciousness is subconscious. So when
Mhm.
people are on the path to evolving their consciousness, everything I teach, people will say, I know that to be true. And, so why do you need to teach something that people already know? Well,
Mhm.
it's because they know it, but they don't know they know it because of the way that it sits right below consciousness. And then we have those epiphanies and we say, oh my gosh, I just had this epiphany and something showed up for me. So we're in a moment where I think our survival depends on becoming more conscious of who we really are. And that's the evolution of consciousness.
Mhm. I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. It's been a feeling that I've had for a few years at least. I can't really place it, but knowing that we're kind of at this important shift in humanity, and my work is so connected to the earth, the great mother, the divine, the divine. I can't even say it's just the divine feminine. It's also the divine union, the divine masculine, but like the creator. And it's something that I feel we're getting back to. And we have an opportunity to really connect with the aspect of the divine creator in such a deeper way that we've kind of been, for the most of it, disconnected from for so long. There's a,
Absolutely. People have experiences of being connected when they're in the community of their spiritual faith, for instance, right? But being able to keep that connection going through their life is another thing. And I think that's where we're at now. Look at our world and how kind of dire things are. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's something inside us as human beings that says we need to evolve, right? We're being threatened on some existential level. And like any species that is threatened, it's going to move into an accelerated evolutionary process. I think this is our accelerated evolutionary process.
Do you feel like there is, I hate even to say this, but that there is a split in the directions that people are going? Is that even a concept that you dive into or think about?
So, what I think is everybody's doing their best in terms of their own consciousness. I think for some reason the evolution of consciousness got a bad rap. I think probably in the 60s when it was free love, right? And it was free this and it was free that and no boundaries, and it kind of turned into a little bit of a mess in terms of it the pendulum swung from being so conservative to being so
Wild.
wild. I would say wild, right? So I think we're still trying to redefine for people that the evolution of consciousness does not mean that anything goes. The evolution of consciousness is really honestly about living from our heart.
Hmm.
And that's where the divine feminine comes in,
Yes.
because the divine feminine is so much about living from the heart. So I think some people are still kind of turned off by the movement, by the people who are just trying to get spiritual and trying to get on a higher wavelength and trying to build their vibration. There's something that doesn't work for some people. However, so many people right now are just saying, for whatever reason, I want to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
That feels right. It doesn't feel dangerous. It doesn't feel out of control. It doesn't feel wild. It doesn't feel like I'm going to lose myself or have to join an ashram or anything like that. It just feels like I can develop myself now and I can get back to my heart, what really matters to me.
And I think that's kind of where I wonder about the two different ways, because at least from what I see from my own perspective, is that there are definitely people wanting to come back to a heart based way of living. And then there's also others who I see, and it may just be the world that I'm in also, are more mentally, like it's more the mind and the mental aspects that's growing within some communities or parts of our collective. And so that's kind of what I was wondering, like if we can join the two, I mean, how powerful can we be? Like there's so much potential there. But if there
Yeah.
is a groups of people that are only about the mental aspect, I wonder if there will be some disconnect there.
Well, I think that conversations like this, these are super important because sometimes it's a matter of people not understanding,
Yeah.
right? Just not understanding, what are they doing? Those earth people, what are they doing? We don't understand what they're doing. And then there is a really big question about how does all of this work in terms of practical everyday life, in terms of community and
Mhm.
education and commerce, and the people who are exploring these higher dimensions are
Yeah.
trying to explore them in terms of, well, how could it work? How could we come together as one humanity? What does that look like? What does that mean? Where are the power struggles? Who's going to have the power? Right? How's money going to work? Right? It just feels like there's so much to sort out in terms of what it can really look like to live in unity consciousness as one humanity. But at least we're on the path to having the conversations.
Yeah, I think we're more open to it now than we have been in
Ever.
possibly, yeah.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time. Well, I feel like this part of the journey, this part of the trajectory to be part of the conversation is the most exciting place to be.
Yeah, I love these conversations. I think you're right that we have this opportunity to have conversations to bring awareness to it. And that's really what these platforms could be about, that we have the opportunity to share and to speak about that. And I think that this is a very, very important topic, especially with awareness around the bridging of that gap. Do you have any advice or even like a practice that you encourage people to do or that would be beneficial for the audience, of something that they can do to reconnect?
Yeah, because the gap outside of us is of course mirrored by the gap inside of us. So it's really interesting when we're looking at higher vibrations or experiencing higher vibrations, and we get into a state of consciousness that is elevated, then a lot of the division seems to go away. It's the strangest thing where in one state of consciousness everything looks divided, and in another state of consciousness everything looks lovely. So what's that about? So that's kind of what my model is based on. So, a lot of people who work energetically, they will subscribe to the quantum mechanical model, meaning that there are vibrations and fields and so on and so forth. And so I took it a little bit further in my work. And since I had so much time to contemplate this and try to figure it out, I started looking at the quantum physics model, which basically says there are 11 dimensions to life. There's not just one dimension, there's 11 dimensions. And five of those dimensions look just like us. And so that made me think, well, what are these dimensions? And of course, from a quantum physics standpoint, they don't like people to take their model and start ascribing human elements to it because they say this is not what we're talking about. However, a lot of quantum physicists say this is exactly what we're talking about. And more people, even quantum physicists, are saying that what they discovered in the East in terms of meditation and heightened states of consciousness is totally what they're talking about in quantum physics. So I'm just, inspired by the model. And I started thinking, what if these different fields are actually the different levels of consciousness that we get into? So the first field is the field of the ego. And when we're living from ego, that's a low calibration. If your listeners have studied any of David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force and Kinesiological Calibrations, he actually had a scale from 0 to 1,000 where he would say over 400 is where you're getting into higher states of consciousness. And under 400 is where you're in ego territory, basically. So, what if that first field is actually its own dimension? And that when we're in that field of chaos and despair and drama and all the awful things that are happening in the world, what if that is a dimension of life, but it's not the only dimension? And so then we can say, well, let's get to a higher dimension. And so the second field in my work is the dimension of the sacred. It is when we take ourselves out to nature, we step away from that world. We go into processes and experiences that allow us to reconnect with ourselves and get below the ego and reconnect. That's an actual field energetic. What I think is that when we build our memory so that we can keep our identity stable, this is who I really am. I don't want to be that jerk that I am in that first field. That's not who I want to be, even though I keep being that jerk. I don't want to be that jerk, right? We can recognize who we really are and build a stability in our identification so that we identify as a higher being. Then, if we can keep that electromagnetically, if we can keep the energy of that, we can go back into the world that looks like the same world, but it's not the same world, because this is the world of flow. And this is what I call the third field. This is magnetics, law of attraction. We're able to attract and we're able to manifest, and all of the things that people say about living an enlightened life are true in that third field. So that's how I help people orient to who they are and who they want to be,
Mm.
understanding that sometimes we're going to be ego and sometimes we're going to be our higher self on this journey. Whatever reconnects us to our higher self is the practice. It is not about thinking and hoping. It's about getting back to nature. It's
Mm.
about getting back into a safe environment. It's about getting away from what's triggering us and back to ourselves, and then choosing to stay connected to our truth and do our best once we get back out into that chaos.
I can see the process through my own life and through
Yeah.
my work that I never thought about it that way. But I can see it so clearly now.
It's so different, isn't it? It's a
Hmm.
different dimension,
Hmm.
right? When you had your spiritual awakening, that was a dimension that allowed you to connect. And so people talk about portals. And I think they're intuitively talking about portals to these other dimensions that we really want to live in and get out of the chaos.
So that was going to be kind of a question that I wanted to ask, actually, and I was trying to debate, do I bring it up or not? Do you think that's what timelines are? So we hear people jump timelines, or there's a timeline shift, or maybe we're living in two different timelines. Do you think that has?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's where quantum jumping, I think that's what it's all about. When we really get into the energetic potential of what we're dealing with, we look at that little field of the ego where all of life has created this kind of mess in a way. I mean, big mess, really. We understand that there is absolutely no possibility that that is going to change, because it is in a field that is fragmented, right? It's fragmented, not connected to the higher realms. So the only way to get out of it, we've got to quit trying to fix it and get ourselves out of it. And we understand that that is such a little part of the vast potential that we're dealing with. When we look up into the sky and we see the galaxies and we understand we cannot even see to the end or even a slight degree of what we are in terms of the magic of life, then we start playing in those realms, because that's where the potential is. And we can literally jump to higher frequencies. Our entire life changes with one jump. People get the jobs that they want. People meet the people that they want. People start enjoying their life more. Their life becomes mystical and incredible because they have jumped. And when they're jumping, they're also jumping timelines.
I love all of this stuff. This is so
It's
fascinating to me.
incredible, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I don't even know if this is totally not something I was planning on sharing on this, but um, so I have an experience where I'm just going to tell the story. So I was sitting in my backyard at nighttime, and there was a bonfire that we had. And a friend of mine went in to grab some cacao. And while she went in, I jumped into another timeline, and I was sitting in the back of a house, not the same tree, but it was like a palm tree next door in the desert in Egypt. And then I was there for, I don't know, probably a minute or two. And then I jumped back and but it was so recognizable. And it's not the first time that I've had a connection with this other. How, how do you explain that in this sense?
Well, that takes a developed being, right?
Mm,
So, I mean, obviously, you've been on this path for quite some time and you had a spiritual awakening.
yeah.
So, your own internal energetic anatomy is developed.
Mm,
And we have to live differently when our energetic anatomy is developed because we experience different things.
mm,
So, talk about not feeling comfortable in the first field, because in the first field, there's so much chaos that all of this internal movement that's going on, there's no way to orient it in
mm,
ordinary reality, right? So come out of ordinary reality, get back into a higher field, and the orientation is right. So, I mean, I can read energetics, I can read energy, and I can see that and I use the chakra system not
okay.
because I was taught the chakra system, but because it is the absolute best way to understand where somebody is in terms of their consciousness. So your sixth chakra is enormous, right?
Mm,
Your sixth chakra, your third eye is very developed. Okay. So, and I can see that. So because of that, you're going to have access to trans-dimensional experiences.
mhm,
And and what I think is that they are all in service of the development of self. So you went to Egypt for something.
mhm,
There was an intention that you set somewhere along the line that you wanted to embody a very particular vibration and probably connected to the archetypal energetics of the feminine divine.
mhm,
And of course, Egypt is a very profound environment when it comes to the feminine divine and the archetypal dimensions of the feminine divine. And I think you jumped over and then you brought something back. And so it would be a matter of figuring out energetically, what did I bring back? And what energetic did I bring back I'm placing in the mosaic of my being because I'm a leader. You're a leader of women at this time.
mm,
So those kinds of things are going to happen because the universe and the way our consciousness is going to give us the opportunity to be who we are meant to be. And it's quantum jumping, it's quantum leaping, time dimensions, it's geographical dimensions. We feel called to a certain place, we travel. I just got back from
mhm,
Fiji and I gained something in Fiji that there is no other place on the planet that I could have gained that.
mhm, mhm.
So all of this is part of becoming who we are and who we're meant to be.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And Yeah, I've also kind of I've done that as far as the traveling and picking up the different pieces. That makes so much sense. I didn't even start traveling till I was 25, really, and then it was out the door and I couldn't stop. Now I'm
Yeah.
trying to find my roots, but I'm trying to like ground.
Right. Yes. Yes, and you needed to do that, right? To
Yeah.
weave in all of the energetics
Hmm.
that prepare you for the work you're doing now.
And yes. Wow. And Fiji, how magical. Fiji is, from what I've seen, is just gorgeous.
Incredibly
Deep,
magical,
rich.
really deep, super deep. And I don't think I ever slept so good than when I
Mm.
was in Fiji. It was a different level of sleep. It is so ancient. I had an ancient sleep in Fiji, and I am still feeling restored. And it was a few months ago.
Wow. I can feel that. I think every part of the earth, the land, obviously it carries its own energy from not just what's been created on it, but something very ancient. Like there's an energy within the earth, and there's whether it's masculine or feminine, or there's something about it. I used to do retreats in Costa Rica, and because it was the middle of the jungle, because the jungle felt so feminine, so wild to me, it was almost like this hug, but in this wild kind of like, I can't explain it. So I would lead retreats there for that reason. It was the energy of the earth.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has its own consciousness, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no doubt. I take people into what's called dreaming body, and dreaming body is a shamanic term
Mm-hmm.
for having that connection to the earth where intelligence transfers. So we open up our field, light body to light body, and now we're in a complete energetic vibrational realm where the consciousness of earth can transfer to us, and I think in so many ways it needs to, right? Because we are the stewards. We're the
Mm-hmm.
stewards of the earth. And so there is a relationship that we have to regain in terms of the consciousness of the earth.
I could not agree more. And I more and more I'm receiving visions in that sense. It's planting seeds. It's just building that connection, growing the roots deeper. I think this is where we are. We need
Totally.
to reconnect in this interwoven, interconnected way with the earth now.
Absolutely. It's so important for us and our own evolution, and it's
Mm.
so important for the earth. And I don't think anything makes us happier, really, than feeling connected to the earth. I
People think
used
I'm a
to,
little bit. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that I was a psychotherapist for a long time before well, I was kind of doing the same thing. I was doing both. I was doing psychotherapy during the week, and I was doing very high level energetic work on the weekends for a few decades, actually. And what I could see in my psychotherapy practice is that complete healing would probably never happen because people are looking for the answers in the wrong place. They're trying to find the answers in career, relationships. They're trying to find the answers in, the regular, ordinary life. And which is great. We need to be functional on that level. But energetically, on the other hand, when people start getting energetically connected to the cosmos, energetically connected to the earth, energetically connected to one another, that's an entirely different level of satisfaction in life that we can never get through our relationships with each other, right? I mean, we can get into communion with one another at that level, but it is the level of the earth connection,
I
unity
agree.
consciousness.
It is, and it's perfect that you said that first, because People look at me like I'm a little bit crazy now. Like, you talk about the tree huggers.
Yeah.
And it really is fascinating that, as through the years, I've always been connected to the earth. I grew up on farming, which is why I was so deeply connected to the earth,
Yeah.
even as a teenager. But now at this stage of life, I don't know for how long, I just want to, I'm like, I just need to go hug a tree. I just need to like touch the
Yep.
tree. I just need to like lay on
Yep.
the ground, and I don't need
Definitely.
anything else. I just want to lay there on the ground.
Yes.
And my parents, they have a forest, so whenever I go home and it's been a little while, I just can't wait to like go hug the tree. I just want to kiss
Absolutely.
all the trees because my boyfriend looks at me like I'm a little bit crazy, but I'm just like, you don't get it. You will one day.
Uh-huh, exactly. The thing is, like I was saying, people who have opened up internally to these higher states of consciousness, we actually do have to live differently, right?
Yes.
We're not we're not the same species. We're different. And so, of course, from ordinary reality, they think people like us are a little bit crazy. But I'll tell you something. I've been doing this work for several decades, and my own family was a little worried about me. And and it was actually quite painful for me because it's like, oh my gosh, you're either making fun of me or you're actually worried about me or you think I'm a Looney Tunes or whatever. And then my nephew said to my sister, who is his mother, more recently, he said, poor Aunt Daphne, everybody thought she was crazy, but now all of these ideas are mainstream.
You're ahead of your time.
I think she was just ahead of her time. And I said, I didn't think I would ever hear that. That was so cool. I said, thank you. But back to your point, it is absolutely imperative that those of us who have woken up in this way understand that we have to follow the guidance. Because
Mm,
I can see for you that because you're in these super high and deep and personal connections with people, and you're operating out of your sixth chakra, which gives you kind of a multidimensional depth of knowing,
mm,
that it's actually your connection to the trees that are keeping you in resonance to be able to do that level of work. So I don't even think it's an option. I
yeah,
think
it
we're
doesn't feel like an
guided to
option.
what we need.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like an option anymore. And I haven't really
Mhm.
had the words, like it's not really been explained. It's just something I feel within myself, but it doesn't feel like an option. It feels
No,
like I need it like the air that I breathe.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. And you're an energy healer as
I
well.
am. I
Yes.
am an energy healer. Yeah.
Have you've been doing that since you began this work, kind
Well,
of
well,
alongside of?
yeah, when so I had my big spiritual awakening. I
Mhm.
thought that was kind of when it all started for me. But of course, now my family's saying, no, you were like that before. Don't you remember? You were 6 years old and you were doing something, out there on the ant hill that was some kind of something. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So I think it does go back even further. But I had that massive awakening at 19, and then it got kind of bad for 5 years, right? Because
Mm.
then it was like, how do I live this? How do I live my truth? And but by the time I was 24, I was seeing energetically.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, and I still didn't know exactly what to do with it. So that started me on the path to try to figure out what is this and what happened. And basically, what happened is my upper chakras opened and spontaneously, like yours, right? And
Mm.
so I did all sorts of alternative things trying to figure out everything. And I didn't figure out exactly what made complete sense to me in terms of energy healing until I had my son. And when I had my son, my consciousness actually went to an even higher level. And then I was able to see the truth around energetic healing, and that the best energetic healing is not when other people put a vibration on you, right? Like Reiki uses a very specific vibration. It helps a lot of people, but I wanted, that was something that I guess I was after something a little different. So then I realized that there was actually a to tune people into their own highest vibration through energetic healing. So it's not anybody else's vibration, it's their own signature vibration. And
Okay.
so I had an institute at that time. I was teaching energetics and human potential and coming into higher states of consciousness and so on and so forth. So I actually designed and developed, I brought in an energy healer just to make sure that I was really on track with it. But when she said, this is like next level, I said, let's teach it. So I actually became I had to become state certified to be able to teach it in my state. And so I went through the process, which was a very interesting conversation. Well, process with the state, trying to, I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the conversations that we had in terms of what I was doing. I'll tell you about it sometime in terms of, they wanted to know if I was working with people that were passed over and all those kinds of things. But whatever, it did end up being that way, that we did kind of do that work. But um, but anyway, so I developed a model that I call restorative touch that is really based on the practitioner being able to tune into the signature of the other person's highest calibration of their energy and then help them tune to that. And I've had enormous success with people with health issues and just having those quantum jumps because they're working with their own energy at a higher level and they recognize it as their own.
Wow. That is so cool. Yeah, I would love to hear those stories at some point because I can imagine the
Yeah.
conversations that were not just the questions, but the conversations of trying to help them understand what you're doing.
Exactly. Because I think one of the things is that, from the 60s, people looked kind of like hippies or whatever, so you could typecast them, right? But I was in a suit, I was professional, I was a licensed psychotherapist, I was completely on the up and up in terms of all the things I had to do for my business and all this. And then I'm having these conversations with the state about energetic healing and why it would be important for me to certify people in this
Mhm.
model. There were a lot of blank stares in the room, but I did get it. I got the certification and I taught for, gosh, over 10 years, maybe 15 years. So
Incredible. Congratulations
yeah.
on
Well,
that.
thank you.
um, so there's a couple questions out of you sharing that of what I would like to ask. Um, as an energy healer, well, first let's go to unlocking your inner potential. So, what does that truly mean to you, and how can someone really begin that journey, that transformative journey to unlock their inner potential?
Great question. So, unlocking your inner potential really has to do with the exploration of both the height and depth of our psyche. And so, the height of our psyche is where we feel very connected and almost merged with the universe. And where do we get these experiences? Well, I think the best place to get these experiences is probably sunrise,
Mhm.
sunset, stars, something so grand and so profound that when we lean into it, letting go of the worries of everyday life, we actually find the portal into the experience of having the sunrise and we feel it all the way through our bodies. We're not just looking at it, we're experiencing it. And
Mm.
when we do that, we have just shifted from being a physical being to being a light body. Einstein's equation, energy and matter are the same thing in different forms. We are two things we're the same thing in different forms. So the first step is to lighten our vibration up enough through getting under the stars, remembering on a higher level who we are, remembering on a higher frequency what's important in life. And then we have to find how much depth we can access. Because when people first get on this path, there's a lot that they've stuffed into their unconscious that has to be healed. So, all those years of trying to make life okay when it wasn't, all those years of having been traumatized, and the trauma is still there. So, there's a lot of purification of the self to do. So we start that path. We purify ourselves, whatever path that takes, working with people like you and working energetically and maybe going to a therapist or whatever works. We start getting healed. We start healing ourselves emotionally and mentally. Then we understand that the height that we reach when we're in nature can go all the way through to the depth of our soul. And between the depth of our soul and the height of our connection to the universe is unlimited potential. Absolutely unlimited. We have to learn to shape it. We have to learn to use it on what I call the horizontal line, which is life, wherever we are. We have to learn how to be empowered and to create out of it and to co create out of it. But that's where it is, and it's there all the time if we can get to it.
And if someone is just starting this path on the spiritual personal development, looking for more of a spiritual connection, what is one piece of advice that you would give them today that they can begin to unlock this? I mean, I know the sunset and
Mhm.
is there anything else like they can do right now, any little practice?
Well, I think that the more important thing to share, I mean, there's like so many different practices,
Much.
but the important thing is that every single person that has opened up to this path is going to be guided,
Mm.
right? And sometimes people would say that they believed in the power of three, and they would say, I contacted you because your name came up 3 times, right?
Okay.
So I was talking with a friend and they mentioned you. And then I went through a bookstore and I saw your book. Or then heard a podcast or something. You came up 3 times and I said, oh my gosh, I have to reach out now. So we can become aware of the signs that take us to the right people, the right teachers, the right books, the right information. We are so guided that, I mean, it's like the synchronicities are amazing when we just say, I'm ready. I'm, and it's our intention, of course, that creates the path. When we say, I want this, I'm ready, I'm going to do it. And then we look, and then it all becomes magical in terms of how we're guided.
Mm. I remember when I first started looking for signs or being
Yeah.
aware that that was even a thing and following that, it really changes everything because you grow this deeper connection with your higher self, with creator, with the earth. Like you
Yeah.
become this one with it all. And
Yes. Oh,
I
it's
think that's
incredible.
mm.
It is
How
so
about you?
magical.
It is magical. It is very magical.
It is
It
so
feels like you're living a
magical.
magical life.
Yes, it does. It totally feels like you're living a magical life.
You mentioned your book. Tell us about your book.
So the one that's actually out there more is called The Gifted. And this is a very simple book. It just talks about the 9 gifts that we all have inside of us, including awareness, potential. This is a picture of it.
Okay.
And it's a simple book. This book was actually featured at the International Book Expo in New York. I was super happy about that. It was super exciting. But it doesn't go as deep into everything that I teach. It's a very simple, people put this on their nightstand and they read a chapter of it. It talks about the ego, it talks about awareness, potential, stillness, harmony, engagement. But the real depth of what I teach is through my movement, and that's the SHIB movement, for ultra conscious living and learning. So that would be the place to dive into what I have to offer if people want to.
Where can they find the Sheb movement?
Oh, that's at my website, DaphneMichaels.com, DaphneMichaels.com. And there's actually the SHIB experience, which
Mhm.
is a free time for people to come together in a small group, sometimes just individually. And I do a chakra alignment. We look at where you're at in terms of your own energetic bandwidth. And if there are energetic blocks that are keeping you from really those quantum jumps and quantum leaps that you're interested in. So I'd love to see you or anybody who's interested to sign up and come to the SHIB experience. And then from there, we can see if the SHIB movement is something that would be a good fit.
I think that sounds exciting. I am always open to breaking through any extra blocks.
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. We need help, don't we? We all need help. The first field can be very compelling. So
Hmm.
staying on the path is truly, I'm thinking of it as the art of the path, right? It is truly a commitment to live on this journey every single day and watch our lives unfold.
Could you explain a little bit about the Sheb movement?
Yeah, yes. So the SHIB movement it's really a combination of what I have taught for over 25 years. And so it's an online commitment or an online journey. And people come from different places across the United States, actually. And we've formed a community. And then we also have in person events as well. But I teach online live at
Mm.
least 4 times a month. And so I'm teaching about energetics, I'm teaching about ultra consciousness, both the technology and how it can transform our lives. I'm teaching about the chakras and how to live this and how to get into a higher field and experience the magic of life. So, together as a community and with my guidance, we're just really committed to living this evolution of consciousness out and being on the axis and arrow of where we're going as a humanity if we choose to take this path.
How exciting. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us, your beautiful energy, your
Thank
wisdom.
you.
There's so much here that I'm really excited about. So
Thank you.
I was
And
so excited
same
to
to
have you on
you.
to have this conversation. I think there's definitely pieces in here that that were for me.
I'm happy to hear that. And it has been a
Mhm.
delight to be here today and to vibe with you, right? Your energy is amazing
So
and
was
your
yours.
journey is very inspiring. So thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Daphne. Yours as well. Can you let us know where they can find your website? And so I will put
Yeah.
everything as well in the show notes, but just so
Okay.
they have it from your
Yes.
voice as well.
DaphneMichaels.com. That's DaphneMichaels.com. And there's lots of information there in terms of the ultra conscious life journey And I would love to. There's also a free guide about what it means to be a steward of a higher bandwidth. So it's kind of inspirational. So I'd love to connect with you there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much. Enjoy your
so
afternoon,
welcome.
everyone.
Thank you so
And
much.
I will see you next time.
Wonderful.